So, today's topic is about China shrinking. In China, many people file their marriage registration on Tanabata according to the lunar calendar. This makes the government offices handling marriage registrations particularly crowded on this day, so they sometimes adopt different procedures to manage the influx. Now, the numbers of marriage registrations on this day have already been released, and I'd like to introduce them to you. These figures are not for all of China, but for specific regions. For example, in Guangdong Province, 483 couples filed for marriage on Tanabata this year. Whether this number is high or low, compared to last year's figure of 7,3849 couples, it's nearly 3,000 couples fewer. Another number comes from Henan Province, where 1,619 couples registered this year compared to 3,578 last year, which is less than half of the previous year. So, even if we limit the discussion to Tanabata alone, the number of people getting married this year is significantly lower compared to last year. Looking at the numbers for the first half of 2024, up until June, the nationwide total was about 343,000 marriages. This is approximately 498,000 fewer than last year, meaning around 500,000 fewer couples got married compared to last year. The number of people getting married this year has drastically decreased compared to last year, and when compared to 10 years ago, it's almost half. This decrease in marriage is not only an issue in Japan but is also a significant social issue in China, which the Chinese Communist Party is concerned about. Why? Because, similar to Japan, China is facing an aging population and low birth rates. As China's population ages, the proportion of retirees will increase while the number of people in the workforce will decrease. This raises the question of who will support the elderly. In the old days, the elderly were taken care of by their families, but back then, families had many children, so the burden on each individual was small. However, after the one-child policy was introduced, there was concern about how people would manage in their old age. The Communist Party assured people that they wouldn't need to worry about their old age because the government would take care of them. But now, the Communist Party is telling people not to rely on the government for old age care and to manage it themselves, which has drawn criticism. If more elderly people fall into poverty, people will start questioning the Communist Party's promises. Historically, when dissatisfaction among the people rose, the Communist Party would often blame Japan, telling people that the party was protecting them from Japan, a dangerous country, and therefore should be supported. Currently, they are propagating the idea that Japan is causing marine pollution. Many people in Japan might not be aware of this, but they are constantly criticizing Japan on platforms like Twitter. This is one of the strategies the Communist Party uses to divert domestic dissatisfaction towards Japan. However, if people are truly struggling to survive, they might not care about Japan. They might start questioning the government about the promises it made. Criticizing Japan won't help those who are struggling to survive, so while some might say that's that, and this is this, others might recognize it as propaganda and not be fooled. The Communist Party understands that this problem, if left unchecked, could become a serious issue. Therefore, to fundamentally improve the situation of low birth rates and an aging population, the number of children must increase. But the precondition for that is marriage, which is currently unstable. In some regions, the number of marriages is only half of what it was last year. Just recently, on August 14, the Ministry of Civil Affairs in China announced online that they are considering simplifying the procedures for getting married. While this might sound strange to Japanese people, in China, a document called a haiku is necessary for marriage, and this requirement is seen as a barrier to marriage. The haiku is held by the parents and contains details about the family structure, address, occupation, and so on. To marry, a couple needs their haiku, so if parents oppose the marriage, the couple cannot proceed with the marriage procedures. In China, parents have a decisive role in their children's marriages, which has led to various issues. For example, it's said that a large dowry or a house, typically an apartment in China, is necessary for marriage, and that an expensive betrothal gift is required, reflecting the parents' influence. While some might argue that parents check whether the couple has a solid economic foundation to avoid financial difficulties later, this has led to the phenomenon where men without financial resources cannot get married. If we look back to the old days, Chinese people married even without homes, dowries, or wealth, so the current situation might be considered abnormal. Some believe that parents' control over marriage should be reduced. The Chinese Communist Party is now moving in this direction by proposing reforms to remove the requirement for a haiku in marriage, allowing couples to marry as long as they file a marriage registration themselves. They are also considering including a cooling-off period of 30 days for divorces, during which either party can withdraw the divorce application, preventing the divorce from being finalized. The purpose of these reforms is twofold: to make marriage easier and to maintain marriages, thereby addressing the issue of low birth rates and an aging population. However, the question remains whether these reforms will actually stop the declining birth rates. Even if these reforms make marriage easier, the reason why people are having fewer children in China is largely due to economic factors. Raising children is costly, and even if people can get married without a home, they will likely want one after marriage, which is expensive. Paying off a mortgage while raising children places a significant financial burden on families. This situation isn't unique to China. In Japan, marriage is established solely by the consent of both parties, and while this means that financial resources aren't a legal requirement for marriage, the number of children is still declining. There is a correlation between household income and the number of children. Wealthier families tend to have more children, suggesting that economic factors play a significant role. In China, income disparity is far greater than in Japan. There are Chinese people with enormous wealth, but at the same time, there are many who are very poor. Even in Japan, where people are concerned about the cost of raising children, it's unlikely that a slight change in the system will halt the aging population in China. The root cause of income inequality in China is the existence of the Communist Party, which prioritizes maintaining its regime over the economic well-being of the general population. That's why I believe these reforms won't be effective. Similarly, in Japan, the only way to address the declining birth rate is to implement policies that increase the income of those who currently feel financially insecure. Simply offering financial incentives for having children won't be enough if people's basic financial situation is weak. If people are worried about their income, they won't feel confident in raising children, even if they receive some financial support from the government. The government should focus on immediately returning some of the tax revenue to those who are struggling to alleviate their financial anxiety about the future. That concludes today's discussion. I'll see you in the next video.